This morning's service is different from the one that we had planned. Our minister, Reverend Nell Newton, she's out sick, but her colleague, Reverend Erin Walter, was kind enough to step in to help us out. Thank you, Erin.
Good morning. My name is Reverend Erin Walter, and I'm so delighted to be with you today, even across the miles. I bring you warm greetings from Austin, Texas, from Wildflower UU Church, which I serve as the affiliated community minister. And I come to you from the sparkle of my daughter's bedroom, which has the best Wi-Fi and the best spirit in the house. Anywhere can be church. We've discovered that this year. It's been difficult, but it's also reassuring to know that we are still coming together in the ways that we can. Our call to worship words this morning come from Alandria or E. Williams. E served as the co-moderator of our Unitarian Universalist Association from August 2017 to June 2020, and sadly died in 2020 at the far too young age of 41. E was a Black UU leader of great esteem, someone who brought a joyous presence, indomitable force to all that they did. And so if the name Alandria Williams is new to you, I encourage you to look them up after this service. Our excerpt comes from We Are Worthy, and we thank E for the legacy of their wisdom. We are worthy, not because of what we produce, but because of who we are. We are divine bodies of light and darkness. You are not worthy because of what you offer, not because of what is in your mind, not for the support you give others, not for what you give at all. We are worthy and are whole just because. Welcome to worship.
A feeling I can't describe what it is to be alive, and no matter how I try, it escapes me. Heart set afire, glowing, crackling wild. This stops me in my tracks, yeah, it wakes me, and I say, lift me up. I'm done
Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, for these high purposes do we unite in worship. My beloved people, I cannot pretend, and so I will not tell you, that everything is okay right now, that there is no reason to be angry, that you must be optimistic or at peace. I cannot pretend these things, and so I won't tell them to you. But now our chalice is lit, and so all I can ask in this moment is that we remember the words of Rebecca Parker. There is love, there is a love holding us, and there is a love holding all. By the light of our chalice, let us rest in this love. Please join me in saying our mission. Our spiritual community lives courage, nurtures wonder, inspires justice, and includes all. At this time in our service, we recognize the joys and concerns of the community. This candle of memory and hope from John Hintz. His friend, Dr. Winston's father, died this past Thursday, and our thoughts are with Sandy and his family. This candle of concern from our friend Elizabeth Flynn. Her mother, who has already survived breast cancer 6 years ago, needs to have a biopsy again, and her father is in the hospital with COVID-related pneumonia. He is alone and afraid, but the family is hopeful. We will keep Elizabeth and her family in our thoughts. And this is a candle of concern for Reverend Nell Newton. She and Monty received the COVID vaccine last week, and afterwards she developed Bell's palsy, which might have been triggered by the injection. She is recovering at home, but still is feeling pretty lousy. Finally, I light one candle for all the joys and concerns not shared, but still felt deeply in our hearts. This week is going to be an anxious week for our country. We will be swearing in a new president in the middle of chaos brought on by domestic terrorists. In a time where we already have broken so many norms, this week will also be far different from the past. I hope and pray that we do in fact have a safe and peaceful transition of power, and that all of our cities and towns will be safe. I found it appropriate to share a reading from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in recognizing the holiday and the times that he lived in and the times that we are living in today. This is from the 1964 Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. This is why right temporarily defeated is stronger than evil triumphant. I believe that even amid today's mortar burst and whining bullets, there is still hope for a brighter tomorrow. I believe that wounded justice, lying prostrate on the blood-flowing streets of our nations, can be lifted from the dust of shame to reign supreme among the children of men. I have the audacity to believe that peoples everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits. I believe that what self-centered men have torn down, men of others-centered can build up. I still believe that one day mankind will bow before the altars of God and be crowned triumphant over war and bloodshed. and nonviolent, redemptive good will proclaim the rule of the land. And the lion and the lamb shall lie down together, and every man shall sit under his own vine and fig tree, and none shall be afraid. I still believe that we shall overcome. This faith can give us courage to face the uncertainties of the future. It will give our tired feet strength as we continue our forward stride towards the city of freedom. When our days become dreary with low hovering clouds and our nights become darker than 1,000 midnights, we will know that we are living in the creative turmoil of genuine civilization struggling to be born.
So, I like to call what you're about to see and hear an anthem for all ages. You're going to see my community in this next video. People of all ages joyfully making music, dancing, bubbles, wigs, trampolines, even a roller coaster. Keep your eyes peeled for all the little sources of joy. In just 3 minutes, in a glimpse of daily life. This song is one that I wrote before the pandemic, and it talks about how there can be great struggle and great beauty and love at once. The world is on fire, literally and figuratively, and we still fall in love. We still have joy and laughter. And so that is what I've been grappling with all year. And the video that you're going to see is my family in my home, my messy as it is home. It was the very last gathering that we had before the pandemic shut down in March. I invited all of our friends from the neighborhood into the home, and we had a fun party for all ages and videoed it for this music video. And there's so much life in the kids, especially. So I want to invite you to think about, have you been reaching out to the families in your neighborhood? Have you been inviting the kids and the families that you know to come to church online, to be part of this community online? It's an amazing silver lining that we can reach out to new people and make things accessible. When I watch this video, I get a little choked up thinking about what we're fighting for by continuing to stay home, by getting vaccines, by wearing masks, practicing social distance still after all this time. But I watch this and I remember what we're fighting for and what it's going to feel like, the joy when we can be together again. So I hope you enjoy this song. Sing along and dance in your chair. Get up and move, rise in body or spirit as you would if you were in the sanctuary. And remember that your community is still there, even if you're not together in the same way. And we will be together again. Maybe spot some little elements of fun and remember to add them to your life in 2021. Bubbles, wigs, twister, whatever you can do for more joy. Let's rock out.
It's your fault if you trust. But there's one thing I know, it's this: opposites do coexist, and the last thing they'll ever kill is love. The world's on fire and we'll still fall in love. The world's on fire and we'll still fall in love. The world's on fire and we're not giving up. No, no, I could let you go.
What a gift to look forward into this new year with you. I'd like to start with the wise words of Indian author and activist Arundhati Roy. Historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. We can choose to walk through it, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our databanks and dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. Or we can walk through lightly, with little luggage, ready to imagine another world, and ready to fight for it. So today, I invite you to think about how we might come into this year a little bit lighter and what we are ready to fight for. It was a very hard 2020 for me. My whole life, my ministry and everything I'm about is about bringing people together in person for joy. Teaching dance classes, being a chaplain for a YMCA, playing in bands, bringing people together for shows, the list goes on. And of course, church. Everything that I loved had to take a break this year or this past year or go online. And it was very hard. There was a lot of grief. My YMCA job was eliminated along with many others when the organization could not afford to pay its staff. So I am looking into 2021 wondering what to take from the learning of that hard year. And I know you may be too. And so one of the things that I do when I'm counseling folks who are struggling, and so I turn this on myself as well and I share it with you, is I ask, when times have been hard before, what has gotten you through? And the only time that I've ever experienced quite the epic grief and complete portal shift into a new way of living, other than 2020, was the year that my father died unexpectedly when I was a young adult. He was very healthy and life was good, and then everything changed. He had a heart attack and was in the hospital for a few days before we had to let him go. But in that time, what was so amazing, what makes it a portal, is that there was still so much joy, little things. And it seems almost strange to say, but in the greatest grief, we still found ways as a family to laugh and to celebrate. And so I want to share a few of those things that I remember and what they teach me for community, for the way I want to live. And I hope there'll be something in there for you too. And then I'm going to invite you to think about the things that are going to bring you joy this year and how you're going to share them. So from that year, I remember the way my stepmom invited my mom into a circle of holding hands in the hospital waiting room, where we would speak our willingness to let go, and so that no one would be left out, despite the conflicts and the pain that any family may have. I remember that invitation to bring her in and what it meant to me as a daughter. I remember my stepsister's aunt, who brought me new flip-flops in the hospital waiting room. A very small gesture, but one I'll never forget, because she said to me, I saw how you've worn out your shoes and how much you love them, and I wanted to get you new ones. And I tell you, she knelt down at my feet during that time of grief. And I always remember the story, the image of Jesus washing people's feet, how sacred to be at someone's feet in that tender way. And she gave me these new shoes. And it wasn't the shoes themselves so much as the noticing that she had noticed the things that comforted me and brought me delight. And I want us all to be noticing the little things for each other when we can during this difficult time. Of course, I remember all the friends who sat with us, but especially the man who drove an hour from the small town where my father lived to the city hospital. This was a man who changed the oil in my father's truck ever so often. Yet they knew each other well enough by name that word had gotten back to him. And he came to Austin to tell us what a good man my father was and to pray and to wish us healing. I thought, I want that kind of life with roots where we know each other by name, workers, and all of us, even when we just see each other every now and then. I want to be that kind of church, too. I remember crying in the chapel of the hospital. This is long before I was a minister. And being held in a circle of love by people from all different faith backgrounds. A minister with a very different faith and cultural background than mine. And just feeling so held in their love. And knowing that what we believed about where my father was going or what would happen in death was not what was important. That love was important. And lastly, I remember country music, fishing stories, and barbecue smells, all of which we brought into my father's hospital room in the hopes that they would bring him back to life. That he would smell the barbecue, he would hear the Merle Haggard, he would hear my laughter talking about what it was like to fish with him, and that would do the trick. It didn't, but those things still bring me back to life, and they bring his memory to me. We have lost so many people and so much to this pandemic, and there has been a lot to remember. I pray that we go into this year with some of the lessons that I still remember from that hard time, that we notice each other and make small gifts of care, that we show up, that we go the extra mile, even if it requires a mask, even if it means we stand at a distance, but we show up for each other. That in this coming year, we invite people in despite conflict. We give each other a chance to make amends, to have accountability. That we invite people in that we might not know well, that we might not agree with theology, but we find a way. I pray we find a way this year. And that there be music, that there be food, that there be delights to get us through. There's a piece of scripture that's very sacred to me, and I want to share it with you. I use the Poverty and Justice edition of the Bible, and if the Bible is not something you're using a lot right now, many of you use, this isn't, our number one text, and for some of us it is, but if you would be interested in one, I highly recommend the Poverty and Justice Bible edition. I heard that the Reverend Dr. William Barber used it, and so this is the one I picked up, and here's what's cool about it. There are sections already highlighted. I love to highlight books, but I didn't do this. This book comes highlighted with passages that relate to poverty and justice. And I have no worry or fear that you, as you use, do not care about those topics. So I commend this edition to you. But the part that I want to read to you today is one that came into my life in seminary and really just spoke so much to me. And the chapter is called The Song of Miriam. which gives you a little hint as a musician what I'm going to connect to here. But it's from Exodus. And the feminist scholar Carol Myers has suggested that Exodus might be the most important book of the Bible. And I think that probably all of us can relate on some level to this story. The Israelites are coming from slavery through the promised land, to the promised land, through wilderness, through desert, great struggle, a long journey. They don't know how long it's going to take, and they don't know what it's going to be like when they get there. Now, certainly, some of us have direct ancestral and personal relationship to slavery. Others of us may not, but may understand the experience that we are feeling right now in a pandemic, multiple pandemics of course, COVID-19, but also state violence, environmental degradation. We are in a wilderness as a society to figure out how to move ourselves into something more blessed and divine. So here in the Song of Miriam, verse 19, it says, the Israelites had walked safely through on dry ground. Miriam, the sister of Aaron, was a prophet. So she took her tambourine and led the other women out to play their tambourines and to dance. Then she sang to them. This message that at a time when the Israelites could take probably very little in this story, what could they have been carrying with them? Not much for this long and hard journey. And yet Miriam, who is a prophet, brought a tambourine, and the other women brought tambourines. Now, I heard in our Vice President-elect Kamala Harris's acceptance speech talking about a return to joy. And many of us who have celebrated the smashing of that glass ceiling of gender felt that return to joy. And for me, music and dance are how I express that joy. I invite you to think about what your tambourine is. Miriam has her tambourine. What is your instrument of joy? And how are you going to use it to get you through hard times? Now, what I love especially about this translation here is that it says, Miriam, the sister of Aaron, was a prophet, so she took her tambourine. That two-letter word, so important. It's not Miriam was a prophet, but they tolerated her tambourine. Not Miriam was a prophet but she had a tambourine. Miriam was a prophet, so she had a tambourine. So they sang, so they danced. That joy practice, that music, that dancing was central to her prophetic life. And I believe that each of us has a prophetic life to live. And we, especially as Unitarian Universalists during this time, have a lot to offer. And yes, it is a hard time. And yes, we are going to need to acknowledge all that is a struggle. But without joy, without our instruments of delight, of resilience, of getting through, I don't know how to do it. We need them. So I really implore you to think about your instrument. What is your tambourine? Like the memories that I have from the time by my father's bedside, I hope for you to be able to look back on 2020 and say, would I have wanted this pandemic? Never. And here are the things that I am learning from it. Here are the ways I will honor the many lives we've lost, the ways of being that we've put on hold. Here are the ways that I will love my neighbor, that I will notice and invite people in. I want to ask you to invite people to church. Things are accessible now more than ever, more than they may be again. This is your chance. People need a community of love, of interconnectedness, a community that will notice them, that will say you are welcome here, whatever your belief, whatever your background, whoever you love, believe it or not, many people out there have not received that message yet. They are waiting to hear it from you. Come with your tambourine or whatever instrument of inclusion and joy you have. And let this be the year, as my lamp goes out, let this be the year that we are a light for others. Blessed be. And I wish you a healthy, happy, music-filled year ahead.
This flame is extinguished, but not our hope for the future, our courage in the face of this crisis, and the love that we share in the world.
No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love prevails in heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing? How can I keep Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Please join me in our closing words. May the fellowship of this hour touch and move our lives until we come together again. Goodbye.
For our benediction today, I invite you to reach out your hands. If you have someone with you safely in your space and they are willing, I invite you all to hold hands. We have learned in the past year what an incredible gift, not to be taken for granted, that it is to hold hands. And if you're alone this morning, I invite you to imagine whose hand you're going to hold when we are back together again. And remember, we will be together again. Spirit of life and love, divine of many names and great mystery, I give thanks for this day. I give thanks for the opportunities to learn from such a difficult year behind us. I give thanks for the hope and the purpose that is ahead of us, for this community and the ways that they have stayed together and supported each other. May we know the fullness of love, the interconnectedness of all life. May it encircle us and help us move into this new year with an eye toward joy and beauty, toward compassion and grace for others and for ourselves. Amen. And blessed be. Go in love, and I hope